we are really excited about today's episode and today's guest. Before we get into that, I want to share a brief story. As I get a little bit deeper into my career, there are more and more opportunities to serve on various boards, corporate boards of manufacturing companies, not-for-profit boards, foundation boards. And one of the favorite things that I get to do as I work with technical and community colleges all over the Midwest is serve on several of their advisory board meetings or serve and attend their advisory board meetings. So I was at just such a meeting yesterday, and it was an advisory board meeting for a welding program in the Midwest. And so as we were sitting through the presentations, listening to the dean and the instructors talk about the things that were taking place in the program, they introduced a number of students from their welding program that had come to share in the advisory board meeting. They were really there to observe and to answer questions if any of the board advisors had questions for those students. So they asked us at the end of the meeting if any of the people on the board had questions for the students. There were probably 20 or so of them there that had attended the meeting. And I said, I have a question. I said, I would be really interested to know how these students chose their welding pathway. What was it about welding? What was it about fabrication that led them to be interested in the field of welding? And the answers were absolutely fascinating and in many ways very, very encouraging. There was one young lady who wants to be a fifth generation metal worker. Literally, her father, her grandfather, her great-grandfather, and those that came before them had worked in the metalworking industry, and she wanted to carry on that legacy that had existed for so long in her family. There was another young man who said that he was really interested in building things and making things and creating his own solutions, and that he wanted the opportunity to work in a manufacturing environment where he could build and create. There was yet another person who talked about a welding instructor in their high school who inspired them toward a career in welding. Now, as our regular attendees know, I spent a lot of time in manufacturing, and I ran a metal fabricating company for about 8 years. And we had a dozen certified welders working in that company. So I'm no stranger to the world of welding, both on the education side and on the manufacturing side, because I worked alongside some great people in the field of welding for a long, long time, all of whom, like those other students that we just talked about, were inspired toward careers in welding in one form or another. Well, this is one of the reasons that I am so excited to welcome today's guest to Webinar Wednesday, because we are going to be talking in many ways about inspiration, about new products, about new solutions, and how we give individuals at many different levels the base skills that they need to begin pursuing a welding education and the base inspiration opportunities that we can give them to pursue that career pathway. So at this point in time, it's my sincere pleasure to welcome our guest. Sam Mhatre is the segment manager for education and service parts at Miller Electric. And in that role, she manages the education and service parts portfolio for the entire company. She's based out of Appleton, Wisconsin, which is where the headquarters for Miller Electric is. And she has been working there for about 3 years. She started there in 2018. Before that, she spent 12 years at another very recognizable Wisconsin company, the Kohler Company, where she worked in various accounting, operations, and marketing roles. So, Sam, it is such a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Matt. I'm really excited to be here.
So as we dive into this really interesting discussion about the Miller MobileArc, I think our audience would be interested, first of all, in understanding, as you're talking to welding instructors and teachers, individuals teaching in the field of welding at various levels of education, what are some of the challenges that they're running into when it comes to getting students to enroll in welding courses and programs?
So, Matt, the first and foremost that I see, and what we hear is the inability to attract talent. We're competing against other programs, video games. I have a 9-year-old, so I know getting that, attention to talk about something is really hard. So that's the first and foremost that we hear is how do you attract talent, especially in some of the urban areas where it's hard to get people to sign up for welding courses. We also hear budget and space, right? Always a challenge. There are a limited number of, if you are in a good position to have a wait list, But again, budgets and space are always challenges for welding instructors. We also see as a challenge from an instructor perspective is how do you help students that are at different levels of competency, right? Somebody who's never welded before, or somebody who's the fifth generation, comes from that family who's more exposed to welding. So I think these are a couple of things that we hear from instructors as to be challenges. Really.
So these instructors are in the field, they're having trouble attracting talent in the first place. Of course, they always have the constraints of budget and in many cases, space in their labs that's available to them, teaching various levels of competencies as well. I can totally understand how those are challenges that are regularly being faced by our instructors and our teachers. When we think about obstacles, we don't just think about obstacles for educators, right? There are obstacles for students as well. What are some of the bigger obstacles that are preventing students from pursuing a career pathway in the field of welding?
So I think the biggest one is awareness of welding as a viable career, right? Welding pays well. It's got a huge demand. So how do we get students to even know that this is viable for us? It's hands-on. If you can travel. Again, as I said before, we're competing with other technology courses. So from a student perspective, I think awareness that welding is a viable career is the number one thing, for them that's preventing. What we also see, is the fear of live welding. At the end of the day, if somebody who hasn't been exposed to it will have the fear of arcs and sparks. So how do we break those obstacles and help students see and get them exposed to welding as a career choice? I think that's the first thing that we need to address is how do we expose students to welding and make it easy for them to get into this industry?
Absolutely. It's interesting in my years of manufacturing, I used to marvel that I would go into the Starbucks that was not too far from my house, and I would get my morning coffee. And the world of manufacturing starts early, so that was usually around 5:30, 5:45 in the morning. And then I would drive to our facility that was quite a ways north of where I live, and I would walk into a manufacturing operation that had all these great opportunities for amazing careers. And I would think about the fact that, I was buying that coffee a lot of times from somebody who may even have a college degree. In fact, one of the individuals there that I know actually did have a 4-year college degree. And then I would get up to our welding facility and we couldn't find enough people. And those were individuals that could make tremendous amounts of money. In our case, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year and even more. So I think you're exactly right. Students can make tremendous amounts of money in welding. They do have to get over that hurdle of, as you put it, the arcs and sparks, and know that you don't have to be afraid of live welding, but we maybe need to ease them into it a little bit. So that kind of speaks to the next question that I have. How have Miller Electric's education solutions been motivating more and more students to get into the field of welding?
So at Miller, we want every student to be exposed to welding, whether they choose it as a choice of career or just do it as a DIY. We want students to be exposed. And the products that we have for specific to education use augmented reality and simulation to create that engaging learning experience. And it helps them practice, build muscle memory before you go and live weld. Now, to learn how to weld, really, you need to go and burn some metal. But again, this is about getting them comfortable, getting them how to practice. These products that we have are intended to complement your training and not replace live welding. So I think that's what we want to look at. I always think about these products as, think about if you wanted to learn how to fly a plane, right? Chances are on your day one, nobody's going to give you a plane and say, go fly it. You're going to have to go through a simulator, practice it before you get comfortable and do it. So that's essentially what we look at these education solution products looking to do.
That's a great example. I had never thought really about that analogy of flying a plane, but I'm gonna borrow that one from you, and I'll give you credit the first few times I used it, and then I'm just gonna steal it. That is a perfect analogy, and I think you put that really, really well. As we think about the value of augmented reality and the value of using some of these advancing technologies to give students those really amazing experiences, and to your point, maybe taking some of that fear out of it, and whether it's learning welding or it's learning lockout tagout or fall prevention or anything like that, we can use augmented reality, mixed reality, emerging technologies that many people are just now getting familiar with to get over that hump. And I think that is probably the coolest thing about our discussion today is just the way that you're leveraging incredible technology to accomplish all of these goals, to get over some of these challenges, both for students, teachers, and instructors that we've already talked about. So I'd like to now just dig a little bit deeper and let's talk about Miller's lineup of welding education solutions and specifically the MobileArc.
Certainly. So the MobileArc product that you see on here, so the basic premise of the product is you're using a mobile device camera, essentially. So this is, with an app that's preloaded on it to simulate these work pieces. So again, this is augmented reality product, and it'll, when you see it, and you'll see it, with the video coming on, again, simulating how it is to weld a product. Again, we have a couple of options here that you'll see a gun mount and, and a helmet mount. So essentially what we're looking at for this product is how does a student practice and build muscle memory? So this is the specially work piece that you have the markers that you can use to essentially create a simulation and learn how to weld. So here you'll see, we give them pointers on what are the things that you should look at: travel speed, work angle, and help them build muscle memory. So in a sense, it's a augmented reality product that helps you to learn the basics of welding, MIG welding specifically.
And I think it's beautiful in its simplicity. I read a book a number of years ago about Steve Jobs. It was really his biography, and it kind of talked about his path at Apple. And he was such a huge advocate for simple solutions, not making things more complicated or cumbersome or bigger than they needed to be to accomplish its purpose. And it just strikes me as we're watching this video that's almost exactly what Miller Electric did in developing this product, is that it just seems so simple, so usable, so approachable for the students. So, credit to you and the design team, of course, at Miller Electric for coming up with such a beautiful, beautiful product. What was the impetus for Miller designing and producing the MobileArc in the first place?
So it goes back to what I mentioned before, right? At Miller, we want every student to be exposed to welding so that they can make informed choices at the end of the day, right? And we also know budget is a concern. So as we looked at this product, we needed a product that uses engaging technology at an affordable price point. So how do you get exposed students to welding and make it affordable? And that was the thought process behind the MobileArc for us, really.
So engaging technology at a price point that makes sense. And I think we should talk a little bit about that price point relative to maybe which market a little bit. We talk about people needing to learn welding in as early as middle school in some cases to get familiarized and inspired around those careers. Certainly in high school, in our technical and community colleges, we have universities that that utilize all kinds of training products and teach all kinds of manufacturing technologies, and then certainly our industrial employers who are trying to figure out how they can upskill their incumbent workforce for the careers of the future. So, who are the ideal users for the MobileArc product?
So the way we see it, right, the MobileArc is a great introductory welding training tool. So schools that have a welding program where students can build muscle memory before live welding, that's who this product is for. This product is for anybody who has recruiting needs to attract students to welding. Now think about a STEM program or even a school that doesn't have a welding program per se, but wants to get their students exposed. So great introductory training tool, great recruiting tool. Think about outreach and awareness from a tech college perspective. If you're a tech college and going into community outreach, this is a great product. It's really light. It's less than 10 pounds, comes in a bag. Just take it and, set it up to get students interested, because that's the whole premise of it. We want more and more students exposed to welding and want to try this.
So using it as a recruiting tool, using it as an outreach tool, finding opportunities to get young people, and in some cases, people of all ages interested in welding career pathways, all great applications for this product. In the end, and I know our instructors and our teachers are going to ask this question if we don't, in the end, as important as those things are, and they are really, really important, it's also important for students to be learning competencies when they're using a product like MobileArc or any other product that's designed to prepare them for careers in welding. As the students are going through the different experiences that we've seen on these videos that we've talked about on these slides, what specifically are the things that they are learning on the MobileArc?
So what you see on the screen, there are a couple of things that we help students to show them, what's the correct technique for, work angle, travel speed, travel angle, contact tip to work distance, the things that you have mentioned online. What we do with this product here is give them guides. So on the top right, you'll see, some pointers. So the goal is to get everything, all of these pointers green, which tells, helps you build muscle memory. So essentially, what's your angle? What is the right angle when you're welding? What's your, how close do you need to be? How, what's the speed? So those are the things that, we hope that we have visual guides that help students, improve their technique. So as I said, travel speed, work angle, travel angle, contact to work distance, the aim. And again, what we look at is this product is not just, how to build muscle memory, but it also view it is that you get a score. So, it's a competitive edge. Everybody's like, what's my score? And, what score did you get? So just building some of that fun and excitement also.
Perfect. And we certainly see students using products like these and competing. Young people are very competitive. In fact, it's just fascinating to watch in middle schools and high schools when they have opportunities to one up one another, or perhaps it's in a trade show booth at a big STEM event. That's certainly a great application. And as we look at the competencies on the screen here, those are exactly the same competencies as we get into entry-level welding that employers are looking for, and that a technical college and an entry-level welding program may be looking for coming out of a high school and so on. So really hitting the mark when it comes to the competencies that we're teaching on the MobileArc. We're having just a great conversation today with Sam Mhatre, who is with Miller Electric and is responsible, among other things, for the MobileArc, brand new product from Miller, and really enjoying our discussion here, Sam. Melissa, I want to pull you in. I know our audience has been listening intently, and I'm always impressed by the types of questions that come from the audience when we're on Webinar Wednesday. So what are the folks out there in technical education thinking, and what do they want to know?
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. And to our audience, go ahead and continue to enter your questions now for Sam while we've got her on here, all about the MobileArc. Sam, I'll start with this one. Can you Chromecast the device?
Yes. So the MobileArc is Chromecast compatible, and you can stream it to an external display, whether it's a TV or a projector. So, which helps again with instructors, right? The instructors can show it on a big screen, and then multiple students can learn. So we did think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question is about the scores that we kind of just touched on. So is there the ability to record scores or port them into a file that then can be saved?
So yes, you can find scores. So the MobileArc stores the last 20 scores or exercises that a student has completed. So you can essentially, what we look at it as, you give this to a student to practice, reset the memory, and they practice, and you'll see the progression on how they're doing with that. So yes, there is, you can store 20 scores in there in that product. So that helps, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The next question is a great one, and it's something that we put as a priority here at ATS Lab Midwest, and that's curriculum. So can you talk a little bit about the welding curriculum that Miller Electric offers?
Yes, absolutely. So we offer, if you guys are not familiar, we offer the open book, which is a learning management system that gives you about 70 different modules on welding. So it's from intro to welding to MIG welding to stick, and a host of other modules that we want all instructors and schools to use. We also have on our website presentations and quizzes that you can create. Open book also lets you customize, again, customize your tests, customize your curriculum, and add on to what you already use. What I always like to tell everybody is that we have developed this open book for the instructors, and it's all free for them to use. We want more and more people to take advantage of our learning management system and use that for their teaching, or with their curriculum, or just use whatever we have as your curriculum.
Absolutely. Sam, thank you. Thank you for talking about Open Book. It's a really great tool that, we've seen a lot of our educators leverage, particularly in the last year as this hands-on courses had to go virtual. Matt, would you mind talking a little bit about how our team has leveraged Open Book with some creating custom content for our schools?
Absolutely, Melissa. And it's interesting. You hit the nail on the head, especially during the pandemic when so many different manufacturers and educators were trying to figure out, how do I continue my training programs, my incumbent worker training programs, or my technical college, community college, university, high school training programs at a time when students couldn't necessarily be in the classroom, and for a while couldn't be in the school at all. And so we partnered with educators across the Midwest in putting together custom programs using the Open Book platform. As Sam mentioned, there's no cost for Open Book. And so the beauty of it is that it's free as long as you have a subscription. As long as you subscribe through Miller, you can get at that technology, you can get at that content and deliver it to your students. The tricky part is this. Technical colleges, community colleges, high schools already have a set curriculum. They already have learning outcomes that they've established. In many cases, they've already put together lesson plans. And so the creative solution is to figure out how the modules in Open Book, and by the way, I'm a product of Open Book. I've been through several welding courses on that platform, how the modules tie to specific competencies, learning outcomes, items on course syllabi, so that instructors can align the content in their courses with the content in Open Book. So we have a team of people that actually does that for you. We have a team of people that will go through your course syllabus, your learning outcomes, and tie directly those outcomes to modules within Open Book. And then if you have a module in your course or an outcome in your course that doesn't tie to a module in Open Book, we can talk about that. And more important, if there's a module in Open Book that doesn't tie back to your course, in other words, for whatever reason it's not embedded there, we don't need to put that in for your students. We can separate that out and have a separate learning experience for your students who are learning remotely. Now, what we have found is that many programs that were leveraging Open Book during the pandemic, now that they're back in school, now that they're back in session, found the benefits of e-learning, found the benefits of an online learning curriculum and platform, found the benefits of distance learning, of flexible learning that enables their students to study when they're able to. And they have now implemented many of those benefits and many of those lessons that we learned during the era of COVID, which of course is continuing, and we continue to learn lessons, implemented those into the way that they teach and deliver their learning to their students.
Yeah. So please use Open Book. We're excited to have it, offer it to schools and welding instructors.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you both. That was great. I think we have 2 more questions that we'll get through, and that's probably all the time that we have. And of course, if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us, send us an email, and we'll get those answered for you. Sam, can you tell us what kinds of weld coupons come with the MobileArc kit?
So yes, so we have 3 joints, a T joint, a lap joint, and a butt joint. So essentially these are, if you can see, hold on. Okay. So think of them as QR codes, right? So they help you with, with the 3 joints. So lap, butt, and T for welding. Perfect.
Thank you. And then final question, which we've heard a lot from customers as we've been talking to them about the MobileArc, because, for a lot of our high schools who are already using or interested in the augmented arc, they're curious how this compares. So can you tell us a little bit about how MobileArc compares to augmented arc?
Yes. So I may be biased, but I can tell you both are great products, but they meet different needs and are obviously at different price points. So think about it as our augmented arc is our full featured simulation training product. So you learn stick, MIG, TIG, flux core. We have multiple work pieces, including pipe, and you can weld overhead positions, and it's customizable, right? So really useful when you include it as part of a curriculum for, beginner to intermediate students. But if you're looking for a portable recruitment tool to engage students and provide introductory welding for MIG, then MobileArc is the product for you.
Great, thank you for clarifying. They're great compliments to one another, and you guys with that, and you add on the LiveArc and Open Book, you guys have just created a fantastic continuum of solutions for education, and this is just another piece of that. Thank you, Sam, for your time. Thank you, audience, for your questions. I will turn things over to Matt to wrap us up.
All right. Well, thanks again, Melissa, and I'll join you in thanking Sam Mhatre for being just a fantastic guest here on Webinar Wednesday. So very knowledgeable about every aspect of not just MobileArc, but the entire suite of Miller Electric's education solutions. So Sam, thank you so much for joining us, taking time out of your busy day. It's been great having you. And we are going to just talk for a brief moment about next week. We have a great topic lined up for everybody next week. We are back on our industrial series for industrial employers, people in business and industry, people on the non-credit side, if you will, of the whole world of education, talking about how we create KPIs or key performance indicators for our industrial learning programs. In the world of manufacturing, we are all about results. We are all about what gets measured, gets managed, what gets measured improves. And so in the world of manufacturing, if we're going to spend money on anything, and especially on industrial training, people are going to want to know, how do we establish that that investment is worthwhile? So we're going to talk about how you do that, how you establish KPIs, how you determine ROI on a learning program. It'll be a really, really interesting topic. We hope everybody can join us next Wednesday. As you know, we are here every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Central. For our producer, Melissa Martin, I am Matt Kirkner. We will see you next week.